Okay, guys, I got another video here for you. This is Israel to buy 24 more F-35 stealth jets in a $3 billion deal. Well, that's wonderful news. That's wonderful news for the jobs that they create through the military industrial complex for U.S. workers. Um, Not so fast, though. There's a little more to the story than that. If they were actually buying the jets, the $3 billion from their own money, that would be a great deal because that would, of course, be revenue into the businesses. These, even though they're the military-industrial complex, the private corporations, military private corporations that build these jets, such as Lockheed Martin and so forth. There is a slight problem with this story, and we'll read on. So let's see. It says Israel has approved the purchase. Now, Israel had to approve. This is what I find so fascinating and funny at the same time. So Israel has to approve the purchase of a third squadron of F-35 stealth fighter jets in a deal worth $3 billion, the Ministry of Defense said on Sunday. The additional 25 aircraft manufactured by Lockheed Martin will bring the number of F-35s in Israel Air Force to 75. Wow, so that's over $9 billion in fighter planes that Israel has apparently, or so-called, purchased from Lockheed Martin. Again, that would be great news if that was the whole story, because it would provide jobs and it would be additional revenue into the coffers of the U.S. and tax money and salaries and so forth. But let's read on before we get too excited. So it says Israel has approved the purchase of a third squadron of F-35 stealth fighter jets in a deal worth $3 billion. The additional aircraft manufactured by Lockheed Martin will bring the number of F-35s in Israel's Air Force to 75. Israel was the first country outside the United States to acquire the F-35 in May 2018. Its Air Force chief said that Israel was the first to use a plane in combat. Okay, so we're going to move a little now. So Lockheed Martin is the engine manufacturer, and Pratt & Whitney have agreed to involve Israel's defense companies in the production of aircraft components. The Israeli ministry added. So they are cooperating in the sense that they're using their own, they are building some of the components. Now you have to remember, the United States will buy those components. Israel will not contribute those components free of charge to the Lockheed Martin and Pratt & Whitney. No. The United States government, using U.S. tax dollars, will purchase those parts or any of that technology from Israel, okay, to put in those planes. Now, let's move on with the story here. Well, this one doesn't say, okay. So I wanted to mention that what's so important about this story is right here. As I was mentioning earlier, the 25 aircraft manufactured by Lockheed Martin will bring the number of F-35s in Israel's Air Force to 75, the ministry said, adding the deal will be financed. So the deal, remember, Israel's supposedly buying these jets from the United States, military contractors like Lockheed Martin. They're spending $3 billion. At least that's the story that all the headlines are, and we all, hey, that's great. Israel's spending $3 billion. But if you notice, the next line says here, the ministry said, adding that the deal will be financed through the defense aid package Israel receives from the United States. The defense aid package Israel receives from the United States. That is code words for U.S. taxpayers. Israel will not be spending $3 billion. The U.S. taxpayers, if you're a U.S. citizen, you'll be buying these jets. No doubt you bought the last 50 jets for a total of more than $9 billion. That doesn't count the several $billion of foreign aid that automatically goes to Israel every year, as well as additional money that goes for other things, for other military contracts and so forth. So again, the U.S. is at the U.S. is $33 trillion in debt. We have the massive inflation. There are people working 2 some even working 3 jobs to pay their bills, and we are financing Israel's military. Israel has a population of approximately 10 million people. Its total GDP is over $550 billion a year. So technically, based on its population and land size and its GDP, it's one of the richest little countries in the world. And yet you, the American taxpayers, are paying for their planes. That's not all you pay for. You pay for a lot more. But I thought this story was very interesting because this kind of bullshit continues. Why this country is racking up debt, Israel's getting free planes, and a lot more than that. Now, many will say that bullshit line, which is a bullshit line, well, they're our allies. Well, how come they can't be our allies and pay their own bills? I mean, imagine, I had to pay my neighbor's rent and his car because he said, well, I'm your neighbor, I'm your ally. Well, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? I don't owe you anything. You live next to me, so what? You're a friend? Good. Pay your own bills. That's the idea that we have to pay their bills simply because they're our ally when they certainly could afford to pay their own bills is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, that's the story. I thought I'd bring it up. You don't have to agree with me, but that's a story, and that's how I feel about it. Like and subscribe.